Slingshots, silver, and shurikens. We're not talking about American Ninja. This is I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore is a 2017 dark comedy written and directed by Macon Blair in his feature film directorial debut. The film stars Melanie Lynskey as a down-on-her-luck nurse, and Elijah Wood as her really weird but awesome neighbor Tony. I think Melanie Lynskey is a very talented actress. You've seen her in a lot of things as a support role or as a smaller character like in Girl Boss. The past few years, Elijah Wood's really been nailing it with these quirky roles like Fred, Maniac, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, and Sin City. So the film centers around a nurse named Ruth who is basically tired of the way that modern civilization is and the way that people act and how no one calls them on it, and she's just frustrated. And like the title says, she doesn't feel part of this world anymore. A lot of stuff keeps happening to her, and little by little it's adding up. And as it's happening, it's making her faith in humanity waver more and more until her final breaking point, which is when her house is broken into and they steal her grandmother's silverware. So the silverware is really important to her because it belonged to her grandmother, who she loved very much, and the cops don't seem interested in wanting to help her. So she reaches out to her neighbors, and like the cops, no one seems to want to help her, except for one person, and that is her very quirky neighbor named Tony. Together they set out to find stuff that was stolen from her apartment, like her laptop and her grandmother's silverware, and along the way run into a lot of trouble. So as you guys know, when I talk about movies, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That being said, let's get to the good. One thing I really liked about this is it kind of reminded me of earlier Simpsons and some of the earlier Family Guy. There's a lot of little jokes and little things that happen in the background, and sometimes there's these little intimate moments that if you're not paying attention, you probably won't even notice. So it really rewards those viewers who are paying attention and enjoying the movie. So I'm really jaded when it comes to books and movies and TV, games, because I've consumed so much of this media. It's gotten to the point where I'm almost never surprised, and I'm able to call out what's going to happen pretty early on. I actually have to watch myself and make sure that I don't do that, because a lot of my friends and stuff, they get upset because I tend to ruin shows and movies for them. That being said, there were quite a few times where this movie surprised me. Some things happened that I did not expect. Some of them funny, some of them very, very violent. So when I get surprised multiple times during a movie, I'm having a blast. The entire cast is outstanding, not just Melanie and Elijah Wood, but everyone, even the smaller supporting characters or some of the weird side characters that you only meet for a little bit. Directors can really make or break a film by how they interact with their actors and the performances that they coax out of them. In this case, Macon Blair really got the best out of his actors. The cinematography in this film, done by Larkin Sapel, who did Cop Car and Swiss Army Man, is very, very nicely done. And there's some lighting in certain scenes, or the way that certain scenes are framed, that just really impressed me and made the movie stick out all that much more to me, in addition to the great performances. Tomas Vengris did an amazing job editing this film, especially when you consider, one scene might be this slow, dramatic thing, the next scene might be something introspective and a bit sad, another one might be action-packed, another one might be a bit of slapstick comedy. The original score is by the Blair brothers, whom you guys know I am starting to really like because they're doing really great work on a lot of different films. And just like the editing, they really help set the tone for all of these different types of scenes. They have a certain theme for the entire film, and it just keeps it all tied together. The flow of the story and the decisions that the characters make never feels forced. It never feels like there were some dumb decisions put in there just to make it easier on forwarding the plot. I was satisfied throughout the entire film. I never felt like, why would they do that? No, there's no way that would happen. That's so dumb. That makes no sense with the character. I didn't feel like that at any point. While I do enjoy the occasional turn your brain off, eat your popcorn and shut up film, I really enjoy movies that have a lot of depth and have a lot of character, and I really like when they are realistic and you could see something like this happening in the real world. And that's one thing that this movie has going for it. is the realism. Yes, there are some quirky characters and some really weird stuff happens, but it's all very grounded in reality. It's really cool to see what happens when they make certain decisions or they take certain actions. And there are very, very real consequences in this film. A lot of people are comparing this to movies like Death Wish or Something Wild or Falling Down, but I didn't really feel that. I think it's very much unique and it's very much its own thing. And like I said, it's very violent. I really like violent movies that have violence for a reason, especially when the violence is graphic and it's depicted in a realistic manner. Because I was a firefighter and a paramedic and I've seen a lot, not a lot of things faze me. So when some stuff happened in this movie, it surprised me and I was like, wow, that was pretty realistic, but also that was really awesome. It's got one of my favorite endings in the past 2 years. It's a bit of a surprise. It's very satisfying and it definitely pays off if you paid attention during the movie. With all that good out of the way, let's talk about the bad. This film does not treat the viewer like an idiot like so many films do these days. If you're paying attention, you catch a lot of things that you normally wouldn't, and it also doesn't telegraph stuff that's going to happen during the movie, at least most of the time. There was one shot during the climax which kind of telegraphed what was going to happen with certain characters in that moment, although it did kind of subvert that expectation only to bring it back later, which was again a surprise. Now, they did kind of highlight this once earlier. While they did do it with subtlety, if the viewer's paying attention, then they're going to catch it. I saw it coming because of this one really tight shot, and it really said, hey, remember this. So this is the one time during the movie where I was like, you really didn't have to spoon feed that to me. And there was one little moment at the end of the film during this confrontation where you kind of feel like, why is this person doing this? And why is this person doing this? Wouldn't maybe they take action a little bit more? While it wouldn't make sense in the real world, it did make sense in the film, so it didn't bother me that much, but it did stick out because this movie executes realism and planting and payoffs and everything else so well. So the times where it kind of gets away from that, it sticks out more than it would in the average film. So overall, I really, really liked this movie. I don't feel at home in this world anymore. It was something very different. For it to be this guy's feature film debut, writing and directing, I see big things for him. Macon Blair is going to do a lot of good stuff. It gave me like an early Tarantino feel, not the same. It had a different vibe, but that level of potential is there. Like, if this guy can write and direct more stuff like this, he's going to do big things, especially for people who like stuff that's a little more realistic, a little more violent, and they like their humor a bit darker. Not a lot of stuff to dislike about this movie. Some people might get turned off by the pacing or maybe by the dark nature of the film itself, but that's more a matter of taste. So with the good and the bad out of the way, what is the score? Drum roll, please. 8 out of 10.